Her name means hidden. And for most of her life, that is exactly what she was. A Jewish girl in a foreign land, raised by a cousin who loved her like a daughter, keeping a secret so close to her chest that even the people around her didn't fully know who she was. Her name was Esther, and her story begins not with a crown, but with a disappearance. The king of Persia was a man named Ahasuerus, powerful, proud, and accustomed to getting exactly what he wanted. He threw a banquet that lasted 180 days, not a celebration, a display of wealth, of power, of everything his kingdom had accumulated. And at the end of it, he called for his queen, Vashti, to come before his guests so they could see her beauty. She refused. That one quiet refusal sent a tremor through the entire kingdom. His advisors panicked. If the queen defies the king, they said, every woman in Persia will hear about it. Every wife will start defying her husband. This cannot stand. So Vashti was removed, her crown taken, her place emptied, and a search began across the kingdom for a new queen. In the city of Susa, there was a Jewish man named Mordecai. He had raised his young cousin Esther after her parents died, and he had loved her carefully, protectively, the way you love something precious that the world doesn't yet know the value of. When the king's search reached Susa, Esther was among the young women brought to the palace. Mordecai told her one thing before she went: "Do not tell anyone you are Jewish. Keep that hidden." And she did. There is something quietly heartbreaking about that instruction. To walk into a palace, to be seen and admired and chosen, and to carry a secret about who you really are the entire time. To let people see your face, but not your full self. Esther went through 12 months of preparation before she ever stood before the king. 12 months of beauty treatments, of learning the customs of a court that was not her own, of becoming someone that a Persian king would choose. And when her turn came, he chose her. He placed the crown on her head. He made her queen. But nobody in that palace knew who she really was. Now here is where something dark enters the story. The king had an official named Haman, proud, ambitious, the kind of man who needed to be bowed to, who measured his own worth by how low other people stooped in his presence. Everyone bowed to Haman. It was the custom. It was the law. Everyone except Mordecai. Day after day, Mordecai sat at the king's gate and refused to bow. The Bible doesn't give us a long explanation for why, just that he wouldn't. A quiet, stubborn, costly refusal. He found out Mordecai was Jewish, and he decided that killing one man was not enough. He would destroy all of them, every Jewish person in the entire Persian kingdom. He went to the king with a smooth, carefully worded proposal. "There is a people among us who do not follow your laws. It would be in your interest to have them eliminated." The king, barely paying attention, handed Haman his signet ring. "Do with them as you please." Just like that, a whole people sentenced to death, and they didn't even know it yet. When Mordecai heard what had been decreed, he tore his clothes. He put on sackcloth and ashes and sat at the king's gate crying out loud and bitterly. Esther heard that something was wrong. She sent a servant to find out what had happened. Mordecai sent back a message and a request. "Go to the king, plead for your people." Esther sent back the only response that made sense to her in that moment. Everyone knows the law. Anyone who approaches the king without being summoned is put to death, unless the king holds out his golden scepter. And the king has not called for me in 30 days. She was the queen, and she was powerless. Mordecai's reply came back quietly and with a weight that has echoed across centuries. "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows, perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. For such a time as this. Perhaps the hidden girl was placed in the palace not because of who she was, but because of it. Esther sat with that for a moment, and then something shifted in her. She sent a message back to Mordecai. Gather all the Jewish people in Susa, fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days. My servants and I will do the same. And then she said something that is so simple and so devastating it stops you cold. And if I perish, I perish. 5 words. The moment a hidden girl decided to become something else entirely. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes. She walked into the inner court of the palace, uninvited, unsummoned, every step a risk. The king was sitting on his throne. She stood where he could see her, and the king held out his golden scepter. He asked her, "What is it, Queen Esther? Whatever you want, up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." She didn't ask immediately. She was wise. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet, and at the banquet, he asked again, "What is your request?" She invited them to another banquet the next day. She was waiting for the right moment, letting the tension build, letting God arrange what needed to be arranged. That night, the king couldn't sleep. He asked for the royal records to be read to him, and in those records was an account of a day when Mordecai had uncovered a plot to assassinate the king and reported it, saving his life. The king asked what honor had been given to Mordecai for this saving. Nothing, his servant said. Nothing was done for him. And the next morning when Haman arrived at the palace early to ask the king's permission to hang Mordecai on the gallows he had already built, the king called him in first and asked him a question. What should be done for a man the king wants to honor? Haman, assuming the king meant him, described the most elaborate public honor he could imagine. The king said, "Go and do exactly that for Mordecai the Jew." At the second banquet, the king asked Esther again, "What is your request?" And this time, she was ready. She said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, spare my life and the lives of my people. We have been sold to be destroyed and killed and annihilated." The king rose to his feet. "Who has done this? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." The room went still. Everything Haman had built, his power, his plan, his pride, collapsed in that moment. He was taken away, and the king, learning that Haman had built gallows to hang Mordecai, ordered that Haman be hanged on them instead. The decree against the Jewish people was reversed. Mordecai was honored. Esther's people were saved. And the girl who had been told to stay hidden had finally saved an entire nation by finally being seen. There is something remarkable about the book of Esther that most people never notice. God is never mentioned in it. Not once, not by name, not directly. And yet, every single scene carries his fingerprints. The timing that couldn't be coincidence, the hidden night that led to the right record being read, the hidden identity that turned out to be the very thing that saved everyone. That is not absence. That is the quiet, invisible hand of a God who works in the background of our lives, even when we cannot see him, even when we do not hear him, even when the silence feels like he is not there. Maybe you are in a season right now where God feels distant, where you are waiting for a sign that never seems to come, where you wonder if any of this is being guided by anything at all. Esther's story says, "He was there the whole time,
working in ways you couldn't see, placing you exactly where you needed to be for a moment you didn't yet know was coming. You are not hidden from Him, even when you feel hidden from everything else. May you find the courage to step forward when your moment comes. May you trust the silence, and may you know that where you are right now is not an accident for such a time as this. Amen.